And the final piece I'm going to talk about today is something I really don't know all that much about, other than it's a Japanese NCO sword. NCO means non-commissioned officer. It's purely ceremonial. It's not sharp at all. Wouldn't have been used in the war. You could probably attack somebody with it. You can see the hardened edge where it would normally be done in the normal Japanese style, folded over and all that. It's real thin, but to me it epitomizes what I've been getting at. The handle is very European. The sheath, the scabbard, whatever you want to call it, is also very European. The European handles of the time for their swords normally had a black grip for it, with some kind of bronze pommel around it and guard, normally coming up in a flange to your dominant side, whichever one you would hold, with some kind of protrusion coming out towards the person, so then they don't stick themselves. Very European in its way. But there's little giveaways that it's Asian. The use of flowers, the way that it's dremeled, the way that it's chiseled, the way that it uses its line geometry is unique to say the least. You would only really see something used like this if you were giving something to a royal or to a woman earlier in the time. Something floral and light. But this was given to officers. This was something you gave your honorable men. And it's very unique, and it hints at the Asian. So at first it looks European. But then you look at the blade. The blade looks like a Japanese blade. It's got the uniform length all the way down, well, uniform width all the way down. Comes with a fuller along the back, coming down to the blade, and it has the waves of its hardened edge, coming to a sudden and abrupt, almost 45-degree to 30-degree angle to a point. Anybody who knows anything about Asian weaponry, specifically Japanese, will tell you it's a very distinct blade look. I don't know if it's a tanto knife or what, but a lot of these blades were very short and stocky with a ragged point that was sharpened all the way to the top. But another hint to its European heritage, or at least its undermining, is the sheath. A lot of the blades that the Europeans used around the 1800s, even into World War II, were the same style. At the base of the sheath, you would have some kind of ring, so then you could put a tassel or something to differentiate your rank or your importance, or to even just have something to hang your sword on. But it's just the same matte metal outside, sometimes iron, nickel, sometimes they would make it out of brass, but normally it's the same matte gray, and finishing with a flared fin at the top. So that's normally where they would seal the sheath at. It's a very European style. If you've ever seen German or French swords that were commissioned to officers, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. The only thing that gives away the sheath as an Asian blade is the curve. But even that's not immediately obvious because European saber blades had a very similar curve. The only reason why you would even notice it in the first place is because of how thin the blade is. A saber is much thicker. We have these pieces from Japan. One, because they're a bit rare, and whenever you see them, you almost want to pick them up. You almost want to say, that's new, and I haven't seen it before. Even though you know you have. You've seen helmets. You've seen uniforms. You've seen a bugle. You've seen mess kits. You've seen canteens. You've seen swords. You've seen all these things. But whenever you see the Japanese stuff, you see it in a different way. You see it in a different light. With the French, the German, the Italians, it's at least in a Latin language. Most Americans can kind of see the letters and think it's familiar. Meaning, oh yeah, they're a different country, but they're still us, you know? In a certain way, they're still us. When you see a Japanese thing with letters you can't even begin to try and parse, an American can kind of ruin his way through French. You can't do that whenever you're trying to read kanji. I couldn't even begin to tell you what the front of the the helmet says, or what the front of the canteen says to me, or even the kanji on the side of the strap is saying. But I can tell you it's Japanese, and it's interesting, and it's personalized. I won't know what any of these men went through, because there's a fundamental difference between us, a different origin. But there is something that can unite us, and it was the fact that they had things they carried. They had their helmets, they had their bugles, they had their muskets, their canteens, and their swords. These are all important pieces,